Lisa had always been the type of person who noticed everything, even as a child. She could hear a pin drop in the next room. Her husband Mike used to joke that she had superhuman hearing, especially when it came to things that went bump in the night. After 15 years of marriage, she thought she had gotten used to all of Mike's little habits. The way he snored softly when he slept on his back, how he always checked the front door lock 3 times before bed, even his habit of talking in his sleep during stressful weeks at work. But this was different. This was something that didn't make any sense at all. It started about 6 months ago, right around the time when the seasons began to change. Lisa first noticed it on a quiet Tuesday night in early spring. She had been lying in bed, scrolling through her phone, when she heard a soft scratching sound coming from somewhere near their bedroom door. At first, she thought it might be a tree branch rubbing against the house. Their old home was surrounded by large oak trees, and windy nights often brought all sorts of strange noises. She waited and listened, but the sound stopped as quickly as it had started. Mike was fast asleep beside her, completely unaware of anything unusual. Lisa shrugged it off and went back to her phone, thinking nothing more of it. The next night, it happened again. Same time, same soft scratching sound. This time, Lisa actually looked at her phone to check the time. It was exactly 2:47 in the morning. She found it odd that the sound would happen at the exact same time 2 nights in a row. But she convinced herself it was just coincidence. Maybe the neighbor's cat was trying to get into their garage again. By the end of the first week, Lisa realized this wasn't a coincidence at all. Every single night, without fail, the scratching would start at precisely 2:47 a.m. It would last for about 30 seconds, then stop completely. Sometimes, if she listened very carefully, she could swear she heard something that sounded almost like whispering or soft murmuring following the scratching. Lisa began to feel a little anxious about bedtime. She would find herself lying awake, watching the digital clock on her nightstand, waiting for 2:47 to arrive. Her heart would start beating faster around 2:45, and she would hold her breath, listening for the mysterious sound. It became like waiting for a shoe to drop, except the shoe dropped at the exact same time every single night. She tried to wake Mike up one night to see if he could hear it too, but he was such a deep sleeper that getting him to wake up was nearly impossible. A few months earlier, Mike had started taking some new medicine to help him sleep better. He had been having trouble with insomnia due to work stress, and his doctor had prescribed something to help him get proper rest. The medicine worked so well that Mike could probably sleep through a thunderstorm. Lisa began to wonder if she was losing her mind. She started questioning whether the sounds were real, or if her imagination was playing tricks on her. During the day, she would walk around the outside of their house, looking for anything that might explain the nightly scratching. She checked for loose boards, examined the trees for branches that might touch the house, and even looked for signs that animals might be trying to get inside. She found nothing that could explain the mystery. The scratching wasn't loud enough to be frightening, but it was consistent enough to be deeply puzzling. Lisa found herself becoming more and more curious about what could possibly be causing such a regular, predictable sound. She considered setting up her phone to record the audio, but somehow never remembered to do it when the time came. One night, about 3 months into this strange routine, Lisa decided she had heard enough. She was tired of lying in bed every night, waiting for a sound that made no sense. She was tired of questioning her own sanity. Most of all, she was tired of not knowing what was happening in her own home. As 2:46 appeared on her clock, Lisa quietly slipped out of bed, being careful not to wake Mike. She grabbed her phone from the nightstand, making sure the flashlight was ready to use. Her heart was pounding as she tiptoed across the bedroom floor toward the door. She had no idea what she might find on the other side, but she was determined to solve this mystery once and for all. The house was completely quiet except for the soft sound of Mike's breathing. Behind her, Lisa placed her hand on the bedroom door handle and waited. She could feel her pulse in her throat as the seconds ticked by. 2:47 was just moments away, right on schedule. The scratching began. Lisa's hand trembled slightly as she gripped the door handle. The scratching sound was happening right now, just on the other side of the wooden door. Her heart was beating so loud she was worried it might wake up Mike. She took a deep breath and slowly turned the handle, trying to make as little noise as possible. The door opened with the tiniest creak, and Lisa peeked out into the dark hallway. At first, she couldn't see anything at all. The hallway was pitch black, and her eyes hadn't adjusted yet, but the scratching sound was definitely coming from somewhere very close to where she was standing. She quietly stepped out into the hallway, holding her phone ready to turn on the flashlight. The scratching had stopped, but now she could hear something else. It was a very soft sound, almost like someone was moving around quietly. Lisa's mind started racing with all sorts of possibilities. Was someone in their house? Had someone broken in? Should she wake up Mike? Should she call the police? But then she heard something that made her pause. It was a sound she recognized, but it didn't make sense in this situation. It sounded like purring. Very quiet, gentle purring. The kind that cats make when they're happy or content. Lisa slowly raised her phone and turned on the flashlight. The bright light filled the hallway, and what she saw made her jaw drop open in complete surprise. There, sitting perfectly still in the middle of the hallway, was Smokey, their 15-year-old gray cat. He was sitting up straight like he was posing for a picture, and in his mouth was a small dead mouse. But that wasn't the most surprising part. The most surprising part was the way Smokey was looking at her. The cat's green eyes seemed to be staring directly into her soul, and if Lisa didn't know better, she would have sworn that Smokey looked annoyed with her. It was the kind of look that seemed to say, "What took you so long to figure this out?" Or finally, someone noticed. Lisa stood there in her pajamas, holding her phone, staring at her cat, trying to process what she was seeing. Smokey continued to sit there with the mouse in his mouth, not moving, not running away, just waiting. It was like he had been expecting her to show up. "Smokey," Lisa whispered, not sure what else to say. "What are you doing?" The cat didn't respond, of course, but he did something that made Lisa even more confused. He gently placed the mouse down on the floor in front of him, then sat back up and looked at her again. It was almost like he was presenting the mouse to her, like it was some kind of gift. Lisa's mind started working overtime, trying to piece together what was happening. She thought back to all those nights of hearing the scratching sound at exactly 2:47 a.m. Had it been Smokey this whole time? Had her cat been coming to their bedroom door every single night with a mouse? She looked down at the small gray mouse lying on the floor. It was definitely dead, but it looked fresh. Smokey must have caught it somewhere in the house and brought it straight to their bedroom door. But why? And why at the same exact time every night? Lisa remembered how Smokey used to behave when he was younger. Back then, he would often bring small toys to Mike's side of the bed. Little stuffed mice, feather toys. Sometimes even bottle caps or hair ties that he had found around the house. Mike always made a big fuss over these gifts, picking them up and thanking Smokey like he had done something wonderful. But that was years ago, when Smokey was still a playful kitten. As he got older, the toy gifts became less frequent. Lisa hadn't really thought about it much, but now she realized that Smokey had never really stopped wanting to bring gifts. He had just graduated from fake mice to real ones. She looked at Smokey again, and he was still sitting there patiently, like he was waiting for her to do something. Lisa suddenly understood that this wasn't random behavior. This was a routine. Smokey had been doing this every single night, probably for months, maybe even longer. Lisa carefully reached down and picked up the mouse by its tail, trying not to think too much about how gross it was. As soon as she touched it, Smokey started purring louder. His whole body seemed to relax, and he looked much more satisfied. "Thank you, Smokey," Lisa whispered, feeling a little silly for talking to her cat in the middle of the night. But as soon as she said it, Smokey's purring got even louder, and he rubbed against her leg affectionately. Lisa realized that this was what Smokey had been waiting for all along. He hadn't been trying to scare her or cause trouble. He had been trying to take care of his family, to show that he was still useful, still contributing to the household. In his cat mind, bringing mice to his humans was his job. His way of providing for the family. Lisa felt a mix of emotions wash over her. She felt guilty for being annoyed by the nightly sounds. She felt touched that Smokey cared so much about their family. And she felt a little sad that he had been doing this important job every night, without any recognition or thanks. As she stood there in the dark hallway, holding a dead mouse and listening to her cat purr, Lisa realized that everything was about to change. She finally understood what had been happening, but now she had to figure out what to do about it. Lisa couldn't sleep for the rest of that night. She kept thinking about Smokey sitting in the hallway with his mouse, looking at her with those knowing green eyes. After she had thanked him and disposed of the mouse, Smokey had seemed perfectly content. He had rubbed against her legs a few more times, purred loudly, and then walked away like his work was done for the night. But Lisa's mind was spinning with questions. How long had this been going on? Why did it happen at exactly the same time every night? And most importantly, why hadn't she or Mike noticed this pattern before? The next morning, Lisa woke up feeling tired but excited to share her discovery with Mike. She found him in the kitchen, drinking his morning coffee and reading news on his phone. Just like every other day. "Mike," Lisa said, sitting down at the kitchen table across from him, "you're not going to believe what I found out last night." Mike looked up from his phone with a curious expression. "What happened? Did you finally figure out what was making that scratching noise?" Lisa nodded enthusiastically. "It was Smokey. He's been bringing dead mice to our bedroom door every single night at exactly 2:47 a.m. Mike's coffee cup stopped halfway to his mouth. He stared at Lisa for a moment, then set the cup down slowly. "Wait, what? Smokey has been doing what? Bringing mice?" Lisa repeated. "Dead ones. He catches them somewhere in the house and then brings them to our bedroom door. Like their presents. Last night I actually saw him doing it." Mike's face went through several different expressions. First confusion, then surprise, then something that looked almost like recognition. He was quiet for a long moment, just staring down at his coffee. "Mike," Lisa said, "are you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." Mike looked up at her with a strange expression on his face. "Lisa, I think I know what's happening, and I think this might be my fault, your fault." "What do you mean?" Mike stood up from the table and started pacing around the kitchen. Lisa could tell he was thinking hard about something. Finally, he stopped and looked at her. "Do you remember when we first got Smokey, when he was just a tiny kitten?" Lisa nodded. "Of course. That was 15 years ago. He was so small he could fit in your hand. Right? And do you remember how he used to bring me things? Little toys, bottle caps. Sometimes even socks he had found round the house," Lisa thought. Back to those early days. "Yes, I remember. You always made such a big deal about it. You would pick up whatever he brought and tell him he was the best cat in the world." Mike's face lit up with memory. "Exactly. I used to call him my little hunter. Even when he was just bringing me a piece of string or a hair tie, I would thank him like he had brought me a valuable treasure. I thought it was cute. It was cute." Lisa agreed. "But what does that have to do with what's happening now?" Mike sat back down at the table, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees. "I think Smokey never stopped wanting to bring me presents. As he got older and became a better hunter, he started catching real mice instead of just finding random objects around the house." Lisa felt a puzzle piece click into place in her mind. "So you think he's been bringing you mice as presents the same way he used to bring you toys?" "I think so, and I think he's been doing it for a lot longer than 6 months, Lisa frowned. "But I only started noticing the scratching 6 months ago. If he's been doing this for years, why didn't I hear it before?" Mike looked uncomfortable. "Remember when I started taking those sleeping pills? That was about 6 months ago." Lisa stared at him as understanding dawned on her face. "Oh my goodness. You mean you used to wake up when he brought the mice?" Mike nodded slowly. "I think so. I never really thought about it consciously. But I do remember sometimes waking up in the middle of the night and finding dead mice by our bedroom door. I always just cleaned them up and went back to sleep. I figured it was normal cat behavior." "But you never told me about it," I didn't want to gross you out, and honestly, I didn't think it was a big deal. I was kind of proud that Smokey was such a good hunter. I thought he was protecting our house from mice." Lisa sat back in her chair, trying to process everything. "So Smokey has been doing this for years. Every night, he catches a mouse and brings it to you as a present. You used to wake up and acknowledge his gift, but now that you take sleeping medicine, you sleep right through it. And poor Smokey has been sitting out there every night for the past 6 months, waiting for someone to notice his hard work," Mike added, looking guilty. Lisa felt her heart break a little bit. She imagined Smokey sitting patiently in the hallway night after night, with his carefully caught mouse, waiting for the praise and acknowledgement that never came. No wonder he had looked so relieved when she finally showed up. "He must think we don't care about him anymore," Lisa said softly. "He must think his gifts aren't good enough." Mike reached across the table and took Lisa's hand. "We have to fix this. We can't let him think that we don't appreciate what he's doing." Lisa squeezed Mike's hand. "You're right, but how? We can't exactly start waking up at 2:47 every morning." Mike was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then his face brightened. "Actually, maybe we can." Mike's idea was simple, but brilliant. If Smokey had been doing this for 15 years, and if it meant so much to him that he continued even when no one was acknowledging his efforts, then they needed to find a way to show him that his work was still valued and appreciated. "We could set a very quiet alarm for 2:45 a.m., Mike suggested. "Just enough to wake one of us up so we can be there when Smokey arrives with his gift." Lisa looked at him with admiration. "That's actually a really sweet idea. But are you sure you want to wake up in the middle of the night every single day?" Mike smiled and reached over to scratch behind Smokey's ears. The cat had wandered into the kitchen during their conversation and was now sitting by his food bowl, looking perfectly innocent. "He's been doing his job faithfully for 15 years. The least I can do is show up for work too." That evening, they decided to test their theory. Mike set a gentle alarm on his phone for 2:45 a.m., making sure it was quiet enough not to wake Lisa but loud enough to rouse him from his medicine-induced sleep. They went to bed that night feeling like they were about to solve a mystery that had been bothering them for months. When the alarm went off, Mike woke up feeling groggy but determined. He quietly slipped out of bed and tiptoed to the bedroom door. Lisa, who had been sleeping lightly due to excitement, also woke up and decided to watch from the bed dot at exactly 2:47 a.m. They heard the familiar scratching at the door. Mike's heart skipped a beat. After 6 months of sleeping through this moment, he was finally going to be there for Smokey again. Mike opened the door slowly, and there was Smokey, sitting proudly with a small brown mouse in his mouth. But this time, something was different. When Smokey saw Mike standing there, his whole body language changed. His tail started swishing back and forth with excitement, and even with the mouse in his mouth, Lisa could hear him starting to purr. "Good boy, Smokey," Mike whispered, kneeling down to Smokey's level. "Thank you for taking such good care of us." Smokey carefully placed the mouse at Mike's feet, then immediately started rubbing against his legs, purring so loudly that Lisa could hear it from across the room. It was clear that this moment meant everything to the cat. Mike gently picked up the mouse and continued praising Smokey. "You're such a good hunter. We're so lucky to have you protecting our house." The change in Smokey was immediate and dramatic. He seemed lighter, happier, more confident. He followed Mike to the kitchen where Mike disposed of the mouse, and then he followed him back to the bedroom, purring the entire time. The next morning, both Mike and Lisa noticed that Smokey seemed different during the day too. He was more playful, more affectionate, and seemed to have more energy. It was like he had been carrying around a heavy weight for months, and suddenly that weight was gone. They continued their new routine for the next week. Sometimes Mike would wake up for the 2:47 a.m. delivery. Sometimes Lisa would. They started to understand that this wasn't just about getting rid of mice from their house. This was about Smokey feeling like he had a purpose, like he was contributing something valuable to his family. Lisa began to realize how much thought and effort Smokey put into his nightly hunts. The mice were always freshly caught, never old or stale. They were always brought directly to the bedroom door, never left randomly around the house. And the timing was always perfect. Like Smokey had an internal clock that told him exactly when to make his delivery. "You know what I think," Lisa said to Mike one morning as they watched Smokey cleaning himself in a sunny spot by the window. "I think Smokey sees himself as the provider for this family. In his mind, he's not just a pet. He's a working member of the household." Mike nodded thoughtfully. "That makes sense. Think about it from his perspective. We give him food, shelter, and love, but what does he give us in return? In the wild, cats contribute to their family groups by hunting and sharing their catches. Smokey is just doing what his instincts tell him to do." Lisa felt a wave of guilt wash over her. "And for 6 months, we were basically telling him that his contributions didn't matter. No wonder he looked so sad sometimes." Over the following days, Mike and Lisa started paying more attention to Smokey's behavior throughout the entire day. They noticed that he spent considerable time patrolling the house, checking corners and hiding spots where mice might be found. They saw him practicing his hunting skills with toys, keeping his reflexes sharp. They realized that being the family hunter wasn't just something Smokey did at night. It was his full-time job, and he took it very seriously. One evening, as they were getting ready for bed, Lisa sat down next to Smokey and had what felt like a real conversation with him. "Smokey," she said softly, "I want you to know that we understand now. We understand that you've been taking care of us all these years, and we're sorry we didn't notice when you needed us to notice." Smokey looked up at her with those intelligent green eyes, and Lisa could swear that he understood exactly what she was saying. He climbed into her lap and started purring, and for the first time in months, Lisa felt like everything in their house was exactly as it should be. 3 months had passed since Mike and Lisa started their new routine of acknowledging Smokey's nightly gifts. What began as a simple solution to a mysterious scratching sound had transformed into something much deeper and more meaningful for their entire family. The change in Smokey was remarkable. He walked around the house with more confidence, his head held high like he was proud of his important role. His coat seemed shinier, his eyes brighter, and he had developed a new spring in his step that reminded Lisa of how he used to move when he was much younger. But the changes weren't just in Smokey. Mike and Lisa found that their new understanding of their cat had changed their relationship with him too. They started to see him less as a pet and more as a family member with his own responsibilities and contributions. Lisa began to notice things about Smokey that she had never paid attention to before. She saw how he would patrol different areas of the house on different days, like he had a systematic approach to keeping their home safe from unwanted visitors. She watched him testing different hunting techniques with his toys, constantly improving his skills even at 15 years old. Mike started bragging about Smokey to his friends at work. "You should see this cat," he would tell his co-workers. "He's like a professional security guard. Every single night, he makes sure our house is completely mouse-free. We haven't had a single mouse problem since we've lived there, and now I know why." The nightly routine had become something special that Mike and Lisa actually looked forward to. They took turns setting the alarm, and whoever was on Smokey duty that night would quietly get up and be there to receive his gift. Sometimes they would find Smokey waiting patiently by the door before the alarm even went off, like he could sense that tonight was going to be different from all those lonely months when no one came to see his hard work. One night, Lisa had an idea. Instead of just taking the mouse and disposing of it quietly, she decided to make the moment even more special for Smokey. When he presented his catch, she knelt down and spoke to him like he was receiving an award. "Smokey, thank you for this excellent mouse," she whispered. "You are officially the best hunter in this entire neighborhood. This family is so lucky to have you protecting us." Smokey's reaction was incredible. His purring became so loud that Lisa was worried he might wake up Mike. He rubbed against her legs, bumped his head against her hand, and even did a little roll on his back, showing his belly in the ultimate sign of cat happiness and trust. From that night on, both Mike and Lisa started treating Smokey's deliveries like important ceremonies. They would thank him formally, tell him what a good job he was doing, and sometimes even give him a special treat or extra attention as a reward for his hard work. The most surprising change was that Smokey's hunting seemed to become even more efficient. Instead of just catching one mouse per night, some mornings they would find evidence that he had caught multiple mice, but only brought one to their door. It was like he understood that one gift per night was the perfect amount, and he was managing his hunting to provide exactly what was needed. Lisa started to think about how many things in life people do without recognition or thanks. She thought about all the small, daily acts of love and service that family members provide for each other without expecting praise. Smokey's situation had opened her eyes to how important it is to notice and appreciate the ways that everyone in a family contributes, even when those contributions seem small or go unnoticed for long periods of time. One evening, as they were settling in for bed, Mike looked over at Smokey, who was curled up in his favorite chair, already preparing for his nightly work shift. "You know what's funny," Mike said to Lisa. "I used to think that we were taking care of Smokey. We feed him, we give him a home, we take him to the vet when he's sick. But now I realize that he's been taking care of us too, in his own way." Lisa nodded. "It's like he's been doing his job faithfully for 15 years, asking for nothing more than a simple thank you in return. When you think about it that way, it's actually pretty amazing." As if he could hear their conversation, Smokey opened one green eye and looked at them from his chair. Then he stretched, yawned, and settled back into his pre-hunting nap. In a few hours, he would be back on duty, making sure his family was safe and secure. That night, as Lisa drifted off to sleep, she felt grateful for the mysterious scratching sound that had started this whole journey. What could have remained annoying nighttime disturbance had instead become a window into understanding the depth of love and loyalty that their 15-year-old cat had been showing them all along. She realized that sometimes the most profound expressions of love come in the smallest packages. Sometimes they come at 2:47 in the morning, and sometimes, if you're really lucky, they come with a small dead mouse attached, delivered by a cat who just wants you to know that he's got everything under control.